right, we're going to talk about a remake, actually. This is a remake of a 1931 version of the Maltese Falcon. In fact, there's two versions of it. There's another 1936 called Satan Meets a Lady from 1936 starring Bette Davis. So this is the third remake, and some people regard it as one of the best films ever.
I'm going to throw something more at you then.
All
This story was remade twice more.
After this?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
It was remade as a porno, an X-rated porno, called The Jade Pussycat. And it was also remade as a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode.
Oh my God. Okay.
I haven't seen either of those. Trust me. But we're going to talk today about John
movie.
Huston's. Oh, is it your favorite movie?
This is it.
All right, join us for the Maltese MacGuffin. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and thanks for watching, and thanks for finding us, and for our loyal viewers, thank you for continuing to support the show. If you want to support the show, check out the Patreon down below for some great options. You can follow our show on Twitter and Instagram. Today we're going to talk about a movie that turned 80 this year. One of my favorite movies, and I know it's one of the great movies because every time I watch it, I always find something new and I always enjoy it. And even though I know what's going to happen, it's the Maltese Falcon.
All right, so Private Detective Sam Spade's life is thrown into upheaval when he's hired for a simple job by a woman in search of her missing sister. By night's end, two people are dead, Sam's a suspect, and he's confronted by numerous shadowy figures in search of a mysterious artifact, the Maltese Falcon. As his list of allies shrinks, Sam has to play all sides in order to escape the situation with answers and his life.
All right, so real fun fact, David Spade's dad's name really was Sam Spade.
I wonder if his life played out the same way.
So this is, hey, if you want to kick off a movie, I think John Huston did it right? He did if you want to do your first movie ever, this is a great movie. And it puts his dad in it too as well. John Huston's dad's in the movie. He actually holds on to the Maltese Falcon and drops it, and that's John Huston's dad in the movie too.
Oh.
They actually did another movie after this, Treasure of Sarah Madre, with Humphrey Bogart as well.
Yeah, it's funny that this is kind of an area I don't spend a lot of time in. Not that I dislike it, but it's just I didn't grow up watching this kind of stuff. So it's nice being able to do the show with you because this is an area that you seem very interested in. Of course, you said this is your favorite movie. Last year we ended the season with Casablanca.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to me that we're getting the Humphrey Bogart, Peter Lorre, and Sidney Greenstreet show again.
And there's another
the season.
No, there's another bookend. There's another a link to this. The same cinematographer did Casablanca in this movie.
Oh, okay.
Arthur Edwardson did cinematography for Casablanca and cinematography for Maltese Falcon as well. So that's why they kind of look the same as well. And Humphrey Bogart looks great in both of them.
Yeah, and not only that, Humphrey Bogart had to supply his own wardrobe because production costs needed to be kept small on this film. So he was kind of told, this was kind of a more general practice that was done at the time, was that we can't afford to buy all these costumes for you, so you need to provide your own wardrobe. So he is wearing a lot of his own clothing. I think most of the movie he's wearing his own clothing. Which just speaks to general thing, because the man looks dapper as do all. So
yeah, this is why I like it. Right. But I like at the beginning it have that very dreamy, we talk about in film theory, movies are in between dream world and reality, and mixture kind of right before you fall asleep, you have that twilight kind of area, and this kind of starts that area. We're a little bit in the dreamy quality, right? And almost had that aspirations of a dream-like atmosphere. Even in the ending, the great line at the end, right? It's the stuff that dreams are made of, right?
Yeah, well, and it's funny too. I'm not demeaning the film by saying this, but I really my favorite part of the movie was kind of that opening crawl, because it gave you such a sense of mystery.
Foreboding,
to it. Yeah, foreboding. At one point, I was like, "Wait, is this a mummy movie?" Because it's just I knew the general plot of the film, but it convinced me that I was watching a Universal horror movie with that opening. Because I was like, "Wait, what is going to happen here? What is taking place?" I knew about the general plot of the film. It's knowing it 80 years later, it's hard to keep this film spoiler free. So I knew going into it, but at the same time, it kind of made me give this eerie forebodingness. I didn't think about the dreamy quality that it would instill as the story of the Falcon kind of goes in, and then it starts kind of very as you would expect a movie like this to start. Woman walks into an office.
Yeah, just like in Clue, you always got to be worried about the people that hire you. So at the beginning, it's Bridget O'Shaughnessy, but she doesn't really has an alias, and I need to find my daughter. And I love it because the beginning, you could just tell, even with this character, Humphrey's like, I'm not buying this. And then Archer comes in and he's like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it gives you all the element clues that even though there's a mystery to it, you kind of know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really much of a mystery, but it's the journey, how do you get there? And then you put in a MacGuffin of this ornament that everybody wants too as well.
It reminded me of if you're playing Clue and you know who the killer is, but you haven't figured out the weapon or where it happened. Like, you know that a murder took place. You know kind of where it's going to go, but you don't have all the details yet.
Right.
You know?
There's a great scene of when Sam Spade has to go back to her hotel, and she's in her robe, and she's kind of like hesitant. John Huston intentionally made Mary Astor run up and down the stairs 10 times before they did that scene. So that's why she looks a little bit out of breath, like,
Oh, okay.
what are you doing right now? And it has great dialogue. You're not going to go to the police. Go to them. I just have to stand still.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I just thought maybe she was answering the door and she saw Humphrey Bogart and she was like,
Oh, right, yeah. So John Huston's notorious using psychological plays to get what he wants in movies.
Yeah.
That was a great little marker of how he gets it.
It's not a bad tactic. Like, I mean, there's an amount where you can go too far. You know, I read a story about a woman who got hypothermia because a director made her go into cold water for a scene and just kept her there because he wanted her to be really cold. I've heard about that scene. That might be too far.
That's just
Rob Reiner telling the kids in Stand By Me that he was going to kill them if they didn't do the scene right. That might be too far. So, but running up and down the stairs, it worked out well. You know.
Another little footnote is Buck Henry was a kid and he actually be on set. His mom was an extra in the street scenes. So Buck Henry, like 8 years old, he actually could be on the set for the Maltese Falcon. They actually had pictures of when he passed away of him being a kid standing next to Humphrey Bogart in between takes. That's a little cool little footnote about this movie as well. There's also an element of George Raff and Humphrey Bogart. Now you can look those elements up of why Humphrey Bogart became a star and how George Raff came down. And because he turned down this movie, and George Raff saying no to movies made Humphrey Bogart's star go up.
Oh, interesting.
So this is this is really the first movie of Humphrey Bogart being the star. He was a well-known B actor at the time.
There you go. So for all you people out there trying to break into acting, take a risk once in a while. It might turn out to be a film people are still talking about 80 years later. So, and like you said, this is the first film from John Huston, and then you also get to, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is this the first actual film appearance of Sidney Greenstreet?
It is.
I think because he was a stage actor for 40 years.
Yeah.
And this was the first time he appeared in a movie. He went on to work at, like we said, Casablanca the next year, and not only that, he worked with Peter Lorre 10 times across his career. Which is, it's funny to me because I just find both those actors to be so, it's funny because they're kind of always playing the same guys, but I don't mind that because they're engaging playing the same guys.
And Sidney, he would have such high panic attacks for this movie. This is his first movie ever doing. He would have such gross high panic attacks. That's another reason why he was holding on to Humphrey Bogart's hand, which plays a part with the movie. But also he did a lot of his scenes sitting down because he would have such high panic attacks. His heart was such racing. He didn't know he could get his lines out when he did this movie. And it was kind of funny because he's an accomplished actor. He did theater. You wonder why he is just having these panic attacks doing all but he did movies and stuff. But this is kind of funny that
I would imagine that's not too different from people in silent films in their first talkie. Where it's just because stage acting, as much as it is still acting, it's a different kind of acting in a lot of ways. And a lot of people have said that stage acting is harder because you don't get to redo the scene if you fail. But at the same time, being in front of cameras, it's probably more costly to do a movie. So there's always that transitional thing of even if you're really great at one, you are ready to fail again when you switch forms. So I can understand wow, that would be oh my gosh, I have to move and I have to be successful at this, because a lot of people thought when film started really ramping up that we were not going to see live performance on stage as much, if ever again. They thought that was going to go the way of
right.
sound.
It sounds good, and then there's a lot of reviews.
So to fail with this would be really rough.
Sound was going to kill everything. It's also based on the book, The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. Dashiell Hammett also read that Red Harvest. I don't think they made a movie about that one yet, but The Thin Man, which catapulted a bunch of series as well. And of course this one, these are very, very dark detective noir movies. But in the book, Sam Spade's like a 6'1" blonde hair muscle guy, and then Humphrey Bogart's not that. But it's far more effective in the movie. I do like Humphrey Bogart in this role. It fits him perfect. He had dentures, which always he did the hike up his upper lip move all the time. but also he was a chess player. In between movies and audition, how he'd make money was you go onto parks and play chess for money. And he also played chess in between sets. There's pictures of him playing chess on Casablanca and everything. So and every time he tried to make him think of a move in chess, he would always grab his ear. He did that in movies as well. When thinking of his next play as a detective, he always do this, which is another little increment of Humphrey Bogart. Yeah, little mannerisms.
Shame he never got to make a movie with Kubrick. They could have had a lot of fun playing chess and not actually filming anything.
No, they wouldn't. Right? They just play chess.
What's funny when you mentioned that Dashiell Hammett wrote this was, of course, that there was a hard attempt to make a sequel multiple times to this film.
Tried to, yeah.
What's funny is that I believe it's Warner Brothers who has the film rights, correct?
Yep.
Warner Brothers realized after like getting really close to getting a film put together that they didn't have the rights. That Hammett owned the rights to anything outside of making that one film that they made.
Oh, he put like a poison pill in the contract. Like
yeah, so basically, like, in order to do a sequel, they would have to renegotiate, which was not going to happen at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. Was they actually got really, really close to making a follow-up, like called like Further Adventures of the Maltese Falcon or something like that.
Really weird.
And it was just that they got right on the cusp of like saying yes, and then they learned we were going to have to spend a lot more money to get the rights again. And they were like, we're not doing this. But the film did actually eventually have a quasi weird sequel called The Black Bird in the 70s. That was a parody comedy sequel.
It was more like a remake of Satan Meets a Lady, which is a comedy version of this movie.
Okay. So it's it's weird, like, this film is very good, but sometimes the best version of a film doesn't always get like the notoriety. It's interesting that this one did actually succeed at being really, really great, and also is the film we talk about because there's how many adaptations of it, how many weird sequels of it, like the life it's taken on, and yet this movie survives.
And also on the radio, because they had after this, they had like The Adventures of Sam Spade played on the radio. Like that. So even though this movie is kind of a little capsule, it's a remake. And a lot of people get mad about remakes. It's a third remake, but also catapulted like radio, serials, and other stuff like that.
Well, and let me point this out as well. I actually have I had a feeling you were going to suggest watching this, so I bought this like a month ago.
Okay.
This release of the film, The Maltese Falcon, that Warner Brothers put out, actually has, I think, 2 of the audio drama versions.
Oh,
and I think one of them with the cast. It's really, really cool to check out. So I would highly suggest you check that version out if you're interested in learning more about it.
So another one of the reasons that this makes it a great film is you have a great supporting cast. And not only do they have a great supporting cast, they have the right entrances. Everybody has a great entrance for this movie, including Peter Lorre. I love Joe Cairo's entrance because his business card, and then Effie has to tell him, Gardenias. Oh, well, hey, bring him in. He's got money, right. Yeah, but so everybody has the right introduction, even Elijah Cooke Jr.'s too. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Peter Lorre has quickly become one of my favorite people. I again, not having been in this realm of watching movies, I didn't see, I don't think, any Peter Lorre this time last year. So I watched Casablanca. He also appears in one of the Invisible Man sequels.
He does.
I believe as a Nazi. So he appears in that, and when I saw him in that movie, I didn't think was all that great, but every time he's on screen, I'm just like, keep going, I want to watch more. So he quickly became one of these actors that I wish I had watched his movies earlier. But yeah, the moment he shows up, I'm like, he's here. I knew he was in the movie, but now he's here.
And in the book, they say, well, Dashiell's very upfront. He says, this man is queer. And they don't really talk about him being, Joe Cairo being a homosexual, but Peter Lorre does elegant little gestures to make sure you know that he's gay, with even playing with the umbrella with his mouth, and then how he lights his cigarette, and how delicate he is, and how fashionable he is. But in the book, it's very blunt about let him know that Joe Cairo is a homosexual.
Interesting. Well, there was no way you'd get that in a movie in 1941. So.
No, right, no, not even in 1931.
Yeah.
And then you have Elijah Cooke, who plays the little cheat gunman that hangs around the lobby all the time, who's also he's a supporting role. He also has a good role in another noir with Humphrey Bogart, The Big Sleep, if you ever get a chance to watch that one as well. But also, he did a lot of other movies in the 50s as well.
Interesting. We got to talk about our senior MacGuffin here.
Okay.
It's a cool prop.
It is.
I really like this. This is a fun fact for all you guys. There are 3 of these in existence still that are each worth more than the cost of the movie. And they are considered the most rare and most wanted film props in history. consider like top 5, I guess,
And-
film props of all time. And the funny thing is, I believe one of them is damaged because Bogart dropped it.
Yep.
And
I think on his toe.
yeah, and so I believe one of them actually is damaged, and that's like the
All-
king
right,
prop,
yeah.
if you will. But it's funny because it is very MacGuffin-y, and so the idea that they would sell the movie based on this Maltese Falcon, it could have been anything at all. It's just a really cool title. And I like that it's something that it provides a level of mystery to it. It does provide a level of, dare I say, horror, because we have that opening that describes it as this like mythical thing.
Right, yeah, you get the whole backstory.
And
right.
I like that it takes a little bit for it to show up. We actually have a whole nother movie before that thing shows up, pretty much, which is me trying to figure out what happened to my partner. And then it finally like interjects into the narrative right at the right time to tell you like, nope, that part of the movie's done. We're doing something different, and it completely turns the film.
Right.
It could have crashed the movie. If that
Right, if you
back
have an
half
awkward
of it wasn't good, it could have just been like, wait, I'm interested in this part of the mystery, not that part of the mystery. It's like when we talked about Clute. I wanted to know the answers. I'm a little bit less concerned about the romantic relationship. So in Maltese Falcon, it could have completely steamrolled the movie, but when it shows up, it injects the right amount of like drive to keep the film going.
I know. I like how Sidney pets it.
Yeah.
When he sees it, he pets it, right?
Yeah.
But then it's the right element, right? It's like you always talk about, then you feature, and then there it is, and everybody's like, oh, look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I like Sam Spade. He's not a hero. He's more what we call one of the first like anti-heroes, because he's not really a good guy. I mean, he's sleeping with his partner's wife.
Yeah, we never got an official answer that was what was going on, but it was always like throughout the whole film, it's like, yeah, that's happening.
Yeah,
So,
and then in the book, he uses Bridget pretty harshly. I mean, they
Yeah.
spend the night together, and he kind of much uses her, and he's not very nice about it. And he kind of have an element to it, like finally when the Falcon gets in his office, he grabs Alfie's hand, like, we got it, Nate. It's like, you're hurting me. Like, he's in it for himself as well, right? So there's a little more darkness to Sam Spade that wasn't really projected a lot in Heroes before that.
and his relationship with Bridget it's not really the same that you would consider like the femme fatale and the hero who's getting too close. He kind of doesn't, like, it's obvious he doesn't trust her or anyone else.
No.
And I kind of like that, and especially when this is a time period when a lot of that kind of stuff was happening in film, where the main hero was kind of losing his sense and he was trusting the wrong people and he was going to come to regret it. I like that from the get-go, this kind of like inverts it by having him completely untrusting of anyone, including her. Even when we assume that he's getting close to her, he doesn't. It's very obvious that he's like, no, I'm not falling for this.
But we talked about it being Clute at the ending where the bad guy explains it in an exposition dump. It's a little bit awkward. Here it fits very perfect. Tell me what under the gallows.
So the only part of it for me that didn't work in that ending was when they're all talking about the guy that's got the gun that's not Peter Lorre or Sidney Greenstreet. What's the character?
Elijah Cooke, yeah.
Yeah. So with the character, like they're all talking about who we're gonna turn in to take the fall for this, and then afterward, that guy's just sitting there, like pretty much crying because he thinks he's gonna go to jail while they talk about the other problems they're dealing with, and I'm kind of like, are we gonna do something about him? He's just kind of there, like we gotta get him out of the scene. Everything else going on in that scene was really captivating because it's a bunch of guys talking in a room, and we still don't really know how it's going to play out because, like I said, a lot of the films that came out during this time, our hero character is supposed to get dangerously close to ruin,
yes.
And some of them ruin and some of them don't, and so we still don't have an answer as to how the film's going to turn out. No. And that's kind of the best part about this genre is that we can't always assume we're going to get happy endings.
Yeah.
So
Elijah Cooke Jr.'s character, like the gunman kid, in the book he goes out the window, sneaks out the window. In the 31 version, he sneaks out the window, but in this one, it's fitting that it kind of like a vapor.
They forget about him, and then one shot they look, and he's still there, like doing this. Yeah. And I'm like, someone bake him a pie or something, make him feel better.
But I love it because they're so obsessed with the ornament. It's all about they're so obsessed with this, they don't really. Oh, we solved that problem. He left.
I just wish that there would have been an exit stage right for him, get him out of the scene, because every time we saw him on frame again, I was like, we gotta figure something out here. Yeah. But it's nice because again, I enjoyed Bogart, I enjoyed Lorre, I enjoyed Greenstreet, and I like their interactions together. So getting three of them hanging out in a room together figuring out who's going to screw over who. It's kind of fun. It's again, it's a chess game, you know.
It is. It's funny, especially when the cops knock on their door and it's like, how am I got these two guys in my apartment? How am I going to get it? You know, and all of a sudden they're fighting. I guess we're going in. Well, all right, I guess you are. Right? Yeah. It's the constant flow fits very perfect. I still enjoy it. I've seen it over 100 times. I still enjoy watching it.
And I appreciate that it's not overly long for the time
It's
period.
short.
It was
It's like 80 minutes.
For the time period, this was a long movie. You know, when I consider that 1941, one of my favorite movies, The Wolfman, came out, which runs an hour and 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And this one running an hour and 40. Like, it is a long movie for the time, but it doesn't feel like an overly lengthy, dragged out kind of a movie. And maybe that's because it does feel at times like two movies jammed together. Because the Falcon doesn't make an appearance until halfway through. I want to touch on the cinematography, as you mentioned, Arthur Edison, who also did Frankenstein in 1931.
That's right, he did that.
He did. Was that a 7-minute take when they're describing the Falcon when he's with Sidney Greenstreet's character and they're like he's
the whole
about
exposition
it?
stuff.
That exposition scene. Someone told me it was a 7-minute take after I watched the movie. I didn't get a chance to go back and rewatch it, but it doesn't feel like that. And I like when you get a long take that doesn't feel like a long take, where it's not trying to like thumb its nose at you and show off how cool it is.
Right, it's just there to there, right? And then he gets, you know, he goes down from drinking, you know.
Yeah.
And then they kick him in the head, and they got the deep piano keys playing. It's so fun. I just thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. I nominated for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay. I don't think it won anything, but I'm surprised that, you know, in the early 40s, I'm surprised that the movie didn't win anything, but I'm also surprised that it was even nominated too, because we tend not to look back on these movies the same way, and because it is part of there were so many more movies. There was a ton that came out during this time period, and how could you even decide which ones were worthy at the time, because there's just so many of them.
I agree.
That I'm surprised it didn't get lost in the shuffle. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, so the fact it got any noms at all shocks me, but the fact it didn't win shocks me.
It's just one of those. It's a great movie for me. It's my favorite, and it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna change. It's still one of my favorites. Have you seen it?
Yeah. Have you seen 1941's Maltese Falcon? Have you seen any of its other adaptations? The X-rated film not
I have,
notwithstanding.
except for that one. I
haven't
never
seen that one.
No, I didn't know about that one. No.
So let us know your favorite interpretation. It's probably the 40s one, but maybe you're different. Maybe you're into other sorts of films. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe, as Nick pointed out, and check out that Patreon as well. If you join before the end of the year, you're going to get a Patreon selection regardless of your tier in January. We're devoting a lot of January to getting our patrons what they want. And that includes starting off season 4 with a bang. So while you're down there, don't forget to check out all those links, and you can find all my film reviews at gofilmreviews.com.
You can find the St. Paul Filmcast anywhere you find podcasts. It's the stuff that dreams are made of.